A get action is a pass with the passer sprinting to receive the ball back. There are many locations we can run gets from. The next few clips show you the main locations you can run this two-person trigger from. Do not worry about the reads and the coverages, as we will focus on all of those within the video. Note the positioning within these gets. Getting it just inside the 3-point line is optimal to enable a shot in case the defense goes under. You have many different spacing templates you can use, but notice the empty corner on the elbow and wing gets, which can help create a double gap for the handler coming off. There are three things which can happen for the receiver, which comes from Coach Mike McKay. They can give it, keep it, or pivot. Let's look at the actual give it read, which is the most common. There are two main cues here, and this is whether it is clean or dirty. Here we can see it's clean. It is safe to give the ball back. Whereas in this clip, it's dirty. It is not safe because the defender is blowing it up. Knowing whether it's clean or dirty affects the coverage solutions applied off this trigger. Now let's take a look at these solutions. Firstly, starting with clean when the defense goes over or under. This will result in three main things happening. The first thing we'll look at is the slip. The receiver gives it back and they can see the hips of the on-ball defender are opened. We do not need to screen as the advantage is already created. Here we can see a bigger distance between Butler and his defender, resulting in the slip. This is an easier way to convert the 2-on-1. The slip can be done as a forward pivot or reverse pivot. Here you can see the reverse pivot being utilized. This works because it allows the offensive player to open up and receive the ball earlier. Whether to forward or reverse pivot depends on unique constraints such as the location on the floor and the players involved. More often than not, the forward pivot is faster and allows the roller to try and get behind that one defender. As long as the outcome is achieved of separating quickly, the technique does not really matter. Now we look at the decision to stay. This will typically happen if the advantage has not yet been created. By staying and screening, i.e. a smash, now the 2-on-1 can be created. It is very important, however, after this smash for the player to roll and start their roll quickly. We do not want them to be slow rolling because this allows a defense to get back to 2v2. We want the player giving the ball back to be decisive with their roll. The pop could be an option against the drop coverage, but this also depends on individual constraints such as the shooting ability of the pop guy. If players choose to stay, it will not be a screen every time. Good defenders will navigate around it. However, we do want the get receiver to be as wide as possible. Here you can see the player turns his back and is thin. This makes it easier for Westbrook to get over it, even though the shot is made, as there is enough separation for an elite shooter. If contact is not made and the on-ball defender does a good job navigating around it, we still want to be decisive with the roll. Here you can see we give it back and immediately roll, starting a Dominoes sequence. The receiver does not always have to give it back to the player they caught it off. Quickly changing sides and connecting with a different player is a great way to deceive the defense. What to do against the under depends on individual constraints. For a non-shooter, a burst of speed can be an effective way to beat the defender around the other side. For competent shooters, using the get to create separation is a great way to create high-value shots. Players must be ready to apply penetration reaction or dominoes reactions when the get is used. Here, against the heavy nail help, the kick out results in an early rob shot. The last read in here is the twist. If after giving it back, the defense go under and the offense didn't take one of the solutions we just looked at, we need to twist and rescreen as opposed to rolling or popping. Therefore, that offensive player has to be patient on the under. If they see their teammate doesn't take another decision, such as a burst of speed or a shot, twisting is the best way to then create dominoes again. The other concepts we looked at apply after twist, i.e. to slip or to stay and then roll. Here, Barcelona hedged the twist, resulting in the slip and open score. The twist is incredibly effective here because it also distorts the tag, potentially from the two side to the single side. Here, especially with the single side defender top locking a great shooter, it makes the tag incredibly difficult. Now let's take a look at dirty, when it is not safe to pass the ball. There will be 4 options we will specifically be exploring. Let's start by looking at our dynamic one-on-one. Here we do not even need to run a get because we have a Dominoes opportunity with the defender overplaying and making the backdoor cut. Players have to hunt Dominoes, and this is why the dynamic one-on-one reads that we looked at are very important before players look at using the get. Dynamic one-on-one reads also apply for the passer. Here with Caruso overplaying, it triggers the backdoor cut and a beautiful domino sequence with the separate and a nice first touch decision. You can begin to see how the triggers are so interlinked with the dominoes habits. As soon as dominoes appear, can your players apply those principles to get a great shot? Here we see the get run on the elbow extended. One of the reasons the get is such a great action is because it develops these cutting opportunities which we do not get off a trigger such as a dribble handoff. Using the get action is also fantastic for your development, particularly your bigs, because it gets them away from the basket and comfortable making passes. The pivot is another option, and this is typically something Andrew Bogut used a lot with the Warriors playing with Steph. If it is dirty, the player in possession of the ball can simply forward or reverse pivot and the passer will curl to the rim and look to get it back. The reverse pivot may wish to be utilized since it typically will result in screening the chasing defender. The great thing with the BDT offense is it is completely customizable to your players. Here we can see Simmons, who has a great size advantage as a guard, does not decide to get the ball back, instead going to cut and post up. There are many different ways you can incorporate gets. Additionally, against dirty, the passer may reject it initially but then reuse it and come back to get the ball. This can be another nice solution. It could also be the receiver who rejects it and recycles it by starting a new trigger within the offense, such as this dribble handoff. You can see the threat of dirty leads to green rejecting it and looking to start dominoes through a new trigger with the shovel DHO. This again depends on constraints such as players, who they are and where they are on the floor. Here you can see some great defense by the Lakers. This is very disruptive, and you can see the defender gets in between Leonard and the player in possession of the ball. Therefore, by recycling it and starting a new trigger, this could be the best solution. Even though Kawhi freezes and stops the dominoes falling, he re-triggers it using the back down as a protection plan, leading to the kick out and high value 3. With no shooters open coming off these screens, the get is used to immediately flow into another action. Here you can see the receiver rejects it and then goes into the uphill DHO to restart the dominoes. What you may have noticed was that it was still really clean here, and it technically was safe to give it. Therefore, players may wish to just reject and recycle if there is another player they want to get involved with the offense. Keep its are great ways to be deceptive. When the receiver catches the ball and sees an opening, they do not need to return it because they have the dominoes. Particularly if a defender is getting ready to switch onto the passer, the keep it is a great option to punish teams that switch a get action. You can see here the keep it is used from the elbow extended get, which then triggers a domino sequence. Players must be ready to think what's next, i.e. driving to the rim or making the kick out pass decision. This is why I prefer the get to dribble handoffs, because it still gives the receiver an opportunity to do something, as opposed to the DHO with the player picking up their dribble and then effectively being dead. If you have a good soloist, this can be a great option to get them on an advantageous one-on-one. You can choose to use the get as a support or star trigger. Here it is used as a support trigger. The real action is the stagger on the weak side. The get can be used to distract the defense and gain extra separation before using the main trigger that you want to start dominoes. Here it's the opposite. The stagger is used with a forced curl as the support trigger. Then coming off that last screen away, it creates some separation and distorts the defense to use the get as the main star trigger and start dominoes. Gets can flow from duets to trios easily, becoming 3-person actions. You can use a get type action in a blind pick sequence as a counter to pressure. Here with Curry denied, the player flashes for the get, but it is Curry that comes to get it back. You can also use this for non-shooters if the defense really gap. The main application of trios, however, will be the addition of a third player to the action. This can be done with the passer setting a screen, such as this screen away. This is also highly effective because it results in extra separation for the new player coming off, and they can arrive alone at the point of the get. Here we can see the player pivots as it's dirty before giving it to Hayward coming off that brush screen. There are many different ways you can be creative with these screens here. Another option could be getting a screen. Here, as opposed to coming off the get, Porzingis sets a flare screen before diving to the rim. If you practice with constraints, all these things can happen conceptually without needing play calls. Here we can see, as opposed to a flare screen being set, the screen away from Robinson provides a great angle to get separation into the get, knocking down the open shot. Now let's take a look at both getting and setting a screen. The first screen is set by the receiver, with the back screen enabling him to arrive alone. Then a second screen is set for Curry to get separation at the point of the get before converting the open shot. This is great to use as an ATO, or it could happen conceptually after a long practice. The last option is reignite. When dominoes are stopped and we are neutral, immediately using the get to reignite is a great solution. This is because it's incredibly fast getting into this. Gets can also be used as coverage solutions, such as this ball screen where the push coverage is utilized. Using the get can punish this type of push coverage and immediately allow the offense to flow into a next action without lag. We saw this clip already in the video, but now you can see the whole piece and see how the get was used to reignite dominoes. This terminology comes from efficient source. Now let's take a look at how to actually give it. This depends on all the constraints present, such as the player coming off, the separation they have, where they are on the floor, the coverage, etc. A pass may be utilized as opposed to a get if a player has an advantage or against an amazing shooter like Curry who demands that the defense chase over. We know that he's going to have separation, so passing and slipping early is a great solution. Again, you can see separation caused by this screen means the receiver does not wait till they get there. Dominoes have appeared, so we can immediately start converting it and hunting out a rob shot. A snap is kind of a shorter pass, similar to American football. Again, this can be used in advantage situations or if there's a really dynamic player coming off the get and we want to get them driving downhill, such as James Harden in this instance. All these different ways to give it can be explored in your practice session, showing players film and just practicing with constraints. The last section is some common troubleshooting advice off the get action. Players have to do something to arrive alone. By just posting up at this trail/elbow extended area, it gives the defense an easy opportunity to steal it. Changing speed, faking, setting a screen or receiving a screen are solutions to arrive alone. The positioning is also highly important. This side-on positioning gives the player vision and enables them to anticipate their decision. As soon as they go back to basket, they cannot see what the defense is doing and they miss out on possible opportunities such as a keep it read.